pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. See where Vicki has available a draft of a scoring sheet. It's looks like it's taken from the Porter County Foundation scoring sheet, similar to that. Vicki, you want to tell us what you have here?
Okay, well, these were the two rubrics that two of you emailed us. The first one is one that I believe came from Greg Sims. I'm not sure where you got this from. If you
No, we made it. I made it.
You made it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was created.
Okay, there you go. And the second one is, well, I think that's how it's set up. Is the second one that came from Commissioner Biggs through the foundation. So, how did you want to go about this? You could meld the two together. Are there any
Well,
categories that don't seem to apply?
let me tell you what I've done here. I've taken the information from U.S. Treasury's office, the highlights of what they believe that we should be. Let me find it. That every application should have to meet the criteria. And I'm having Melanie back in our office throw all that on a spreadsheet. But the questions, if you look at what they provided us, next to that, here it is. I think she has it actually. That's not it. Anyway, it's the criteria that has to be, that according to the U.S. Treasury's office should be met. And if you read it, it can be answered yes or no, whether they've met it or they have not met it. There's only a couple of those bullet points that they provided us that can be answered with would be like a yes, and the amount is this. And one of those questions was, have they received any COVID funds here in the recent past, or ARP funds from someplace else? And if yes, how much? But everything else was answered yes or no. Does it serve a wide swath of the Porter County residents, this particular program? It sounds somewhat simplistic, but I think that, here's my thought. What we're doing here at this point is making sure that everybody's applied before it gets to the steering committee satisfies the law or the rules and the regulations. But because we have all these applications and the funds, we got a limited amount of funds. We already know that the applications exceed the amount requested of the funds availability. It's really going to be left up to the steering committee to decide, well, we can afford to fund this, but we can't afford to fund that. I mean, in other words, if we get into an approach where we're actually scoring, like this application has 40 points, this application has 35 points, this, and so on and so forth. I guess we could do it that way. It's just, at the end of the day, the steering committee is going to have the last say.
But won't they want recommendations from us as to what we would like to see funded more than something else, like, again, like the ranking? So should that be on this, besides the yes, no's, and which is
Yeah,
outstanding.
We can, Greg, but how do we do that?
You're the chairman.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we do, I don't know, if they're meeting, in other words, if they're meeting all the criteria set out by the U.S. Treasury's office, how do we then say, well, I guess it's just opinion, but it's more valid than this other application that also,
Is valid, right, you're right. But is that what we're here
whatever
for?
reason.
When we meet with the people and kind of as a group? And that's why the expertise is up here to determine, wow, this is really a big need we have in our community. They should be considered higher than someone who, that's great, and thank you that you're here, but in our scoring system, that may not be a bigger need, so we don't want to be funding something that, we don't want to leave something out, but we also
yeah,
don't
no,
want
I
to.
understand where you're coming from. I mean, we could create, 2 or 3 categories, category A and category B. Category A is those projects that we really
Feel strongly about.
Exactly, and then hand those to the commissioners, to the steering committee, as well as the projects, project B. They may or may not feel any differently.
Right.
After looking at it.
Right.
But a lot of what that steering committee, when you think about it, what it's going to come down to is money.
I mean, also, I would say too, I mean, are these projects that were needing to be done before COVID even happened?
Well, yeah, that's
I
what I
mean,
was saying.
you kind of have to look at it as, is this something that's actually, for us, I think we'll be able to look at that a lot easier because it's most of the people that are asking for funds are, it should be COVID related in some sense or another. How has COVID affected you because of this? And hopefully they can explain that in their proposals.
Yeah, I mean, that could be, those kind of applicants, those could be put in category A, and then other applicants that they're requesting funds for the greater good of the community, but it's really not COVID responsible. They're put in category B. I don't know. But once that gets into the Central Committee's hands, the Central Committee, to a large part, if all of these applications that we sent to them were category A, it's going to be based on the availability of money. Because there's only so much money to pass around.
Right.
And we have no clue at this point of any of the applications we're looking at, how many are going to pass muster. They may all, they may none of them. I don't know yet.
I'll be able to address that,
Good.
unless if you wanted me
Yeah.
to address it now.
No, address it now.
Okay, I thought you wanted to first talk about the scoring. I looked at all of the applicants and assigned them to the various subcommittees, and there's a few lingering questions I did want to go over with my fellow technical advisor. But the good news is it doesn't affect this committee. So I have a list of the proposals that would be assigned to your committee. My review is that all of them are an enumerated use within the final rule. So it's not a question of, is this allowable or isn't? Based on what they say in their application, I would be able to assign an expenditure category to it, which is a requirement that the auditor's office will have. You don't really have that requirement too much. So these proposals are all, they would be considered enumerated, and now the question is, are these projects that the county government would want to pursue? And all of these would be treated as sub-recipients, so it would still be our project, but the nonprofit, in this case it's all nonprofits, would be carrying out the project on our behalf.
Right.
So I can give you that listing. It's a total of 10 different applications.
We only have 10 in front of us? Is that what you're
This
saying?
particular
Gotcha.
subcommittee,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. And all, just to kind of group it together, they were assigned to this one because of the priorities that the commissioners assigned to this committee. So if it deals with housing or homelessness, it's at this committee. If it deals with behavioral health, whether that's substance abuse or mental health issues, it's here. And then there are, I think, let me see here, 2 others that meet other categories. So you could pass that down. I think I made extra copies. I wasn't sure how many people would do.
What's that? Yeah. Pass it back to us. Vicki,
Yes.
let's go ahead and read these out loud. I can read them or you can read them.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, we got a housing opportunities location Valparaiso for construction of 36-unit multifamily building in Portage. Why is the location Valparaiso?
I believe that's their main office.
Okay. Housing op,
Wait, one thing, Jim, with the description, that's just a basic description. There may be more in the application. I just tried to summarize it, so they
okay.
might describe it a little bit differently.
The minimum request is 500,000, maximum is 750,000. Housing opportunities, again, Valparaiso, rehab of rental units in Portage and new 12-unit multifamily development. Long-term housing, or minimum request is 250,000, maximum is 250,000. Caring Place, Valparaiso, various facility upgrades serving domestic violence and behavioral health. Minimum request is $1,657,144. Max is same amount. PAC, Valparaiso, to remodel the recovering connection facility, which provides addiction recovery. The request minimum is 50,000, max is 50,000. Project Neighbors, Valparaiso, to build 2 18-unit apartment buildings to serve homeless men. Maximum is 1 million, minimum is 1 million. Family Promise, Portage, Rational Homeless Shelter, rotational homeless shelter, I'm sorry. Rational homeless shelter. 2,475,000 is minimum and 245,000 is maximum. Portage Township, Center Township, multi-group proposal to address long-term housing and other services. Multi-locations. 1,342,000 minimum and same amount for maximum.
Jim, is yours different than ours?
I think you're
Why am I on
line
the,
off.
am I the wrong, am I off here?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think,
No, I changed the order of them. I was trying to group them by like topic and then I did.
No, I could add my thumb in the wrong spot. Let's start back here with the Portage Township, Center Township, multi-group proposal to address the long-term housing and other services, 2,475,000, minimum as well as maximum. Porter County Community Foundation, First Things First, Early Childhood Intervention, 1,342,000, 1,342,000. Porter Stark, Behavioral Health, Mental Health Services, $1,876,495, maximum same amount. And Family Focus, Behavioral Health, $333,950, maximum same amount. With a total of $9,534,589. So as you can see, just with these 10, would eat up nearly half of what we have available to hand out at this point. So it's going to be really, we need to be prepared for our meetings and ask, sometimes difficult questions of the applicants to make sure that we're getting the very best application thrown in front of the steering committee.
And we're gonna be able to get some input from the trustees, is that correct? About what they're dealing with on
That's
your-
why they're here.
Yeah, because I was gonna say that would really be able to help us too in figuring out what the most need is that they're seeing on your end.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we can give that input. I noticed Portage and Center Township have a project here. I don't know if that's theirs together but I mean, I'm sure they'd be best to address that, but we all have the same issues, just in a different type or different style. Just because one might be smaller or larger, it's the same problems, just in a different package.
For example, with both of our townships, we have no city or town, so we don't have the infrastructure
Right.
put together that a town might be able to do some more things that we can do as trustees.
Yeah, and it makes it difficult when center of the county has the most services, so people that don't live in center then miss out on some of the other services.
Well, we do work with some of the services that are available in Center Township, but they cover the county.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of missing parts that we have in
Sure.
the rural or unincorporated areas.
But a lot of us do work together. So, in particular, some of the services that they provide, sometimes we can piggyback off of those. I mean, we all have to make a contribution, of course. They come from the different townships to help support their programs. But it helps out if they have the programs to sustain it, because in the rural townships, there's not enough of it. So where we may have a handful of those problems, they may have hundreds of those problems. And so it's easier for us to provide some type of a payment or an agreement, if you will. But the problem is, as long as they have those services to provide. And I think everyone's been getting cramped lately, given what's going on. So, I would imagine that's where you see a lot of this.
I think it's going to become, as the Commissioner Biggs pointed out, obviously tough questions are going to have to be asked, but when you look at this, the second page of the rubric, there's just a lot of quality ways of dealing with this kind of bit by bit. It's points at the top. I mean, the only thing that may come into play now that we see that what requests have come in, I mean, the only thing I would maybe add, and I haven't figured out where exactly, but just kind of as a point of conversation is, there's obviously quite a bit of building projects here, and again, not to beat that same drum, but we got to make sure that they can get from point A to point B in the time frame. But other than that, maybe adding that somehow into this rubric, because obviously we want to know, one way of looking at it, maybe how complete is the information to know that they can really do what they need to do in the time frame, and how maybe difficult that is to discern from what they have going on. Maybe that's another category of points, but just as the other committees, I think at some point, everyone's going to have to come up with, may not, because I mean, the auditor and I are going to make sure there's not something on here that doesn't clearly qualify. That's the very small first hurdle. Then after that, obviously, a lot of what is on these two, plus obviously Vicki and I will be doing some of the treasury work as far as whether they meet the base requirements, but ultimately ranking some of these are going to be difficult, but I think necessary. But once you get past the hurdle of it, it meets the ARP requirements, it meets the Treasury requirements, it meets the timing requirements, then I think this committee's been formed to be in the unique position to say, to make a tough decision on, a lot of these are dealing with, with housing issues one way or another as to, that's what everyone here has the most information about, is being able to take the local knowledge. These things apply. These people have been put together as kind of the local experts. We're going to be asking for as much input as possible. We have the trustees here to then be able to say, it's not going to be easy or fun, but hey, we think this particular is slightly better than that, and it may be because we think the need's a little bit more here, or we think the need, or there's other services in close proximity that help with keeping this viable for a long period of time. And this board is going to have to probably rank to some extent that list out based upon this board's priority. And I think some of these would help greatly as far as, sustainability. There's a plan for sustainability that is realistic and attainable. The intent of sustainability is very evident, and all the way down to request to not articulate a plan for, for sustainability. I think those are going to be key things. I mean, some of these names we obviously know, but, pick one. Is this, if it was built, remodeled, changed, whatever the case may be, is this going to be continuing on? Is there a track history that these particular organizations do well over the long haul? And I just think we're going to have to try to digest this as much as possible, along with maybe that timing requirement, and attempt to see what rises to the top and to the bottom based upon everyone's knowledge here.
Now, what about funding in regards to matching? Do we have any of that in the equation at all? Like, I'm asking for $1 million, but realistically I only need $500,000 because I can come up with another $500,000. Okay.
Well, that was part of the steering committee's general priority considerations.
Okay.
One of the things that they said would be priority is that the organizations can leverage the matching funds. At the same time, they did want to ask, are you getting ARPA monies from other agencies?
Mm-hmm.
Not that would steer it, but just as an information.
It's good knowledge to know.
On this first rubric, you have meets and exceeds and does not meet the steering committee's priority consideration.
Mm-hmm.
If you were going to keep that, I was going to list out the steering committee's priority considerations, one of which is the timetable.
Like on this one, under budget, that's probably the most organic place to put the timing in. I mean, they've submitted a complete, it's got the revenue for this particular project, and it meets our budgetary constraints. It's been given to us by the Treasury. There might be a place, board giving, I'm not sure that fits good here, but this might be the place for what Councilman Sims was just bringing up as far as the matching. And maybe, this board kind of thinks about, all right, well, if it's is it a 20% match? Is it a 10% match? Is that, and maybe 50% match, whatever the case may be, maybe that goes in the board giving line, and the board talks and figures out how they would like to do the, 5, 3, 4, 1, 2, or 0 on that. Use of funds, obviously, request clearly communicates where the funds will be used. I mean, I think that's going to be part and parcel of this. So if there was another, maybe that's where the overarching considerations go into, as far as, are they meeting those, and are they meeting them to, an exemplary standard or to a needs improvement standard? And that would be my suggestion, is to try to keep it. Maybe population served as part of those overall considerations. Maybe we could mesh use of funds and population served, and try to keep it simple but pointed, so that there's a real fair evaluation of all the requests. And and Commissioner Biggs is correct, when it gets to the central committee or even to the commissioners of the council, it's going to come down to available funds and I think, you know, a well-thought-out score is going to help greatly down the road when, if we end up in a situation where there's, you know, 40 million of qualified, graded out, referred on requests, and there's only X dollars available. So that would be my suggestion, so just some suggestions
Well-
on scoring.
Yeah. I mean, I keep going back to the availability of funds. I mean, if you look at this list here, and you look at the description from the U.S. Treasury's office of how these monies should be considered to be handed out, there's nothing about more bricks and mortar here. There's nothing about creating a larger space for something. It's all about financial loss. Am I right?
That's the other committee.
No, it's,
That's the committee, A to negative impacts. This committee is dealing with the projects.
well, yeah, but wouldn't it, for like say for nonprofits for mental health, wouldn't it be the same criteria?
Well, not exactly, because the other groups, the other group of proposals have to show a negative economic impact. And then with these proposals, they're proposing services to serve other people, not, you know, building an addition to their facility, not, you know, grants to help them meet their operating expenses. That's the other committee. The programs that are assigned to this particular subcommittee are those dealing with, you know, housing, homelessness, substance abuse, and behavioral health, and responding to violence. That was the criteria given by the commissioners.
And could those be considered due to the pandemic? If those issues have grown, would that be, I guess you could say?
I mean, homelessness is the,
Sure, I
I
mean,
mean, homelessness exists.
homelessness, I mean, mental health is huge. I
Mental
mean,
health problems existed, and
I think-
And that-
exacerbated.
I think from
And
the
that's why
unincorporated
U.S.
areas,
Treasury has
Okay.
these listed
Right.
as
Which-
enumerated uses.
and I think from the unincorporated areas, I think we would be interested in the aspects of the collaboration population served throughout the county, so that we would, as a county, benefit from some of these
because we do that
projects.
now. We do that
We
now,
do
George.
that
Yeah.
now,
We
but,
do that now.
you know, if, to make sure that that factor isn't forgotten. Because it's key to the way we operate as trustees now.
Well,
Vicki, just to
my only-
clarify, we're not even going to get a list that doesn't qualify under the final rule, correct? So we don't even have to, really, these are, this is say that there were 15 of these, we could have hypothetically, 5 of these that didn't fit under the final rule that qualify, we're not even seeing those. Is that correct?
Not in this committee.
Right. So that kind of takes it, you know, the treasury thing, I don't know how relevant that is. As long as these projects fall under the final rule, then, you know, they qualify already. We don't have to determine that at this level, do we?
At this point, no,
Right.
not with these.
So basically what we're
I took
doing
the
and what-
attitude,
I
what
think
if
what-
all of these were approved?
Right.
Will I be able to tell U.S. Treasury what category they fit into? And I was able to do that
Right,
with everyone here,
so that's already done,
based on their application.
right.
No. What if
And the
they
other
come
thing I
back?
think that, you know, we have to, I mean, this is just input. We might go through all of these and say, we're not giving any money to any of these. This is just input. So when we talk about the final say, when we rank these, you know, is, you know, what projects work, you know, what evidence, you know, and what's going to be best for the county. But this is just input. So all we're doing is determining, you know, what's best based on what we're given. It's already, these are already qualified, so we don't have to mess with that. We just have to come up with a scoring system and then score it somehow, each proposal, and determine, you know, in rank what we send to the steering committee. Is that, just trying to keep it easy.
Yeah.
Because this could go, we could kind of what-if this thing forever, I think, but just trying to come up with a system where we can score it. We do the averages based on, you know, either one of these proposals on the scoring do an average and then make our, don't we just send this to the steering committee, or?
We send our scores to the steering committee along with the.
Yeah,
with the,
and then the steering
applications.
committee, we could recommend, 5 of these, and they could say, we're not doing any of them. This was just input.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
or
So,
factually.
I was just trying to think of what our role is at the subcommittee level, to just try and do, try and understand what our role is a little bit, and then,
Well, I think to
yeah.
to go into that a bit, the ones that Vicky's handed out, according to her review of the final rule, at least passed the final rule hurdle.
Right.
So then after that, I think the point of having the meetings and the public input is to figure out between the people on the board and the community, how we would rank these.
Right.
And why, and then when that's complete, send that up to the central committee as far as this is it 10? Is that how many are here?
Yes.
Right.
These 10 are 1 through 10, and if in the process we figure out something doesn't qualify, we'll obviously alert you, but if it qualifies, I think we have to, rank them out, or at least, maybe not 1 through 10, but again, however the board wants to do it, but maybe it's, 3 categories, I don't know, top, middle, and low, or whatever, or 1 through 10, but obviously ranking them based upon the local knowledge now. I mean, we've gotten past the treasury rule. Now, based upon the local knowledge and the proposals, what does help the county the most in this particular, based upon these requests? And it may be, I don't want to even say a name because I don't, but maybe it's this one affects more people. It's located in a non-urban setting, or it's in an urban setting, it has services, it doesn't, and because of the knowledge and the trustees and the public, this is the priority of the board and the community. And that's why it's number 1, because it's met all the other requirements,
And the steering committee then it's up to the steering committee then to decide pretty much.
But then the steering committee also has something to look at.
Right.
That board had all these meetings, had all this input, had all those people work on it, and this is what they came to. Because, to your point, is it possible the central committee could say 0? It's possible. Is that probable? No. But at some point, as Commissioner Biggs has pointed out, if the amount of requests exceeds the amount of funds, at some point, it's going to have to get whittled down.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is the steering committee could decide, with this category, there's one project, hypothetically, but a lot of it's going to go to nonprofit. That would be they're going to rank, and then they're going to take all of these subcommittees together and then kind of come up with, like you said, the amount of money that we have, the funding, and then they're going to look at it and say, and we might recommend 5 of these, but hypothetically, the steering committee could say, we're only going to do 1 under this category, and, a lot of it's going to go nonprofit or infrastructure, these other categories. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, what our role is at this level,
I think it is to rank them.
is to try and just rank them, score them,
And give them.
listen to the proposals, and then make our recommendation.
Yeah, what's going to happen, Scott, I can see it. We're going to rank these, and the other committees are going to rank as well. It'll be put up in front of the steering committee. The committee will basically, steering committee will do what we're about to do now.
Again,
With the final act. Because all of that will have a dollar figure. We'll have this dollar figure over here knowing that we have to meet. So there may be some cuts. There may be, as an example, somebody's asking for $1 million. And they say, well, yeah, we'll take less if that's all we can get is 500, but we'd like $1 million. The steering committee may come back to meet that number. We're going to give you 500. You're not going to get $1 million. I don't know. It's just, but it's what they're going to do is what we're doing here now. but they're gonna take all the information and then pare it down to a workable figure. That, you know, one that we can afford to address with, because money's gonna drive all this. It's the availability of money. It's not that any of these projects aren't worthy, but we can't, we're only fooling ourselves if we think we can fund everything. We can't.
And as the other committees go through theirs, you know, hypothetically, the non-for-profit committee may want to go back to the commissioners and council and say, again, this is hypothetical, I'm just for the conversation, hey, we need an idea of the upper limit on what we are gonna give to non-for-profits. Just straight away for anything. It's 5 million, it's 10 million, it's whatever the magic number is, because a lot of the money that's requested is in that line, you know? So, again, this is gonna ebb and flow and change. We may get to the end and it's 6 come out of here and it's all 6 get approved because the fund's available, because other things happened in the other committees. Or you may, this as to Mr. Brickner's point, we may get to the end and 2 of these, 5 or 6 go up as the top and 2 or 3 get picked because the other committees, there was other funding and other scoring, and as it comes back together as a whole. But that's why I think at the end, but I also think if think about this, Mr. Brickner, Mr. Sims, Mr. Biggs, you're all gonna end up in a situation where we're all off committees and we're either at a council meeting or a commissioners meeting, and you're gonna have to vote on these. And I think what you're gonna wanna see from a committee you're not on is, okay, you got to these top magic number of recommendations, but why? Because I'm in that tough position now that I have to pick between good projects that will affect in a good way, but I have to figure out which one I'm going to choose. And I think that's when, and part of the reason why we're doing this is so that we've heard from the public, we've heard from the trustees, and there's something to go look at and say, this is why I'm choosing this one over that one, even though I'm looking at an A and an A minus. But that's how I got the difference between the A and the A minus, was based upon everything else was equal, but I really thought this was more sustainable. Why? Well, because there was public comment or in the presentation. This organization's been around for 80 years and they come, they get money every once in a while, they go build something and they don't come back. Now, I hope that it doesn't fit anybody because I went 80 years, but just as an example, that's why I felt this one was more sustainable, and that happened to be the tiebreaker. Or whatever the case, but that's why I think this board and its minutes and its meetings and its presentations are going to kind of be that library for the commissioners and the council to go back to and say, why, there was 6, again, making a number up, 6 came out of this committee. What was the difference between 4 and 5? Because that's the cutoff. There's something to go look at and to review and to do your homework, if you so choose, to then be able to come back and say, I went back and read the minutes, I saw the presentations, this is what changed it for me. That's why I went left instead of right, or up instead of down, and that's how I made the differential. And I think ultimately that's what we're trying to do. And be able to have something to go look at and say, why? Why is project 6 better than project 7? And how close was it? Maybe it's a cliff, maybe it's a hair.
Do we have any committees or any groups that applied for money that are in multiple committees? Like I'm just looking at top housing opportunities. Do they have another application in another grouping? Okay, does that need to be considered at all to where, I'm just throwing stuff out.
I know what you're saying. Let me think here. I don't believe there are. There were a few that submitted to 2 different committees, and you pick which would be the best. There were a few that submitted to committees that I didn't think were, we have a better committee to do it.
Okay.
But I don't believe that there are any, there aren't, yeah.
Okay. Just trying to whittle this down to.
As you notice, there's 2 applicants from one group here.
Mhm.
It's the same with another committee. There'll be 2 applications, but from one group.
And they'll be giving separate proposals for each of those.
Correct.
So, and I think the proposals will actually help out probably a lot in our decision-making, because you can kind of tell how people have how much stuff they have in order when they do their proposal, and if it's something they're just, dropping from the sky, sounds like a great idea in theory, but how much have they put really forward and getting it organized to actually put, like as an expansion, have they even looked at the number? I mean,
Right.
how much have they gotten, how far have they gotten, and then how much time are they gonna have to be able to get it done, and will they meet those requirements? So, that's definitely something I'd agree will have to weigh on these things.
And when
Well,
they come do that presentation, that's the opportunity to.
Well, right, the
Everybody
presentations are going to be key. Because I agree, Robin, with what you said. I mean, some of these organizations have been around a long time. They have sustainability, and where others I haven't heard of, that doesn't mean they're not credible, it's just I haven't heard of them. And handing over some of these sums of money, not knowing, are you going to be here 2 years from now? That's, I mean, that, I would want it, I'd want proof of that. How are you going to sustain, well, we're going to fundraise.
But I think that's a great point, though, that would, in your scoring, in that hypothetical, that person would score less.
Right.
But if somebody went back to the record, they could say, okay, Commissioner Biggs had a really good point. This organization's only this old, and when asked a pointed question, this was their answer. That either made the board uncomfortable, or still makes me uncomfortable, and that's why they're fifth instead of fourth on the ranking. And then, again, when the central committee and the commissioners and the council go back, they have something to say, okay, that's what happened. That's kind of where that part is.
Well, it really goes back to this scoring sheet. The scoring sheet needs to address all this. So that's still a work in progress. I've got Melanie working on a spreadsheet. She's putting down certain information, but there's going to be other information that's going to need to be on there as well. Because we're going to have to, whatever we send off to the steering committee, they should be clear on what we found to be the best investments. And they shouldn't have to guess, because if we don't do that, we're basically giving them our work, handing it off to them, you do it. That's not right.
No.
Well, that's why this committee should have whatever it needs in its resources, that if we have a question, we have the time and the place to get the answers. It's part of the purpose of breaking it down like this. So if we have a question, we can.
Well, and I also, I had a somewhat short conversation with Kurt this afternoon, but he brought up a couple of things that I thought was a good idea, is that we should be reaching back out to them and let them know, here's what you need before you walk in this room. Because if you don't have answers to those questions, you're holding up the whole process.
Right, and it's gonna affect your scoring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ultimately, if they don't have their ducks in a row,
Right.
then we can't, as people up here, give them an honest,
No.
grade. Not saying that their, charity or whatever they're whatever they're doing isn't, have a purpose, but if they can't give us a good proposal to explain that, then, that could really do a.
Yeah, that's how it works. If they don't do their job, if it doesn't mean enough to them to really prepare for this, then I guess they don't need the money. Somebody else is more worthy.
But I do think it's good to go out to like he's saying, and explain that to them, because some people didn't even understand the whole process. A lot of this is a learning process for a lot of people with ARPA funds. I'm sure they've gotten funds in the past for other things, but this is a kind of a new uncharted territories per se.
But it's very much uncharted territory.
So it sounds like whatever we agree upon in a grading system, then they need to be given that grading system so that they know what they're being graded on, right? That's how we do it in the schools. Kids have a project, here's the criteria, so now do your project and.
Yeah.
And
I just.
I guess from a board, like overall, from the voting members of this board, how important is the collaboration or matching money? Is that, because I've heard that a few times, okay? Sustainability, all right? And then population served, okay? And so what, at the end of the day, because these are, look, you can look at most of these are going to be good presentations, all right? There isn't, most of these names we've all seen before and have an idea of what they're doing in the community. So they're going to be on point, in my opinion. But the stuff where this committee and these voting members are going to have to decide is it important to collaborate? Does it require a collaboration? And if you don't need a collaboration, is there a reason why? And it may be that, hey, we've been doing this again for 80 years and we don't have a problem. That's why we're not collaborating. Or maybe it is important, but is the matching important? If you're coming in and you're asking for $1 million, does the voting members think it's important that they have 10%, 40%, whatever the case may be? And I think some of those, because I don't think we're gonna get a lot of people to show up here and not have good presentations.
Well, you're probably right.
Okay, I think we're gonna get a lot of really professional, well thought out presentations. The ones that aren't are gonna stick out like a sore thumb. But even then, we're gonna get down to quality presentations that it's gonna have to come down to something that this voting members care about. And that's all I'm trying to figure out here is, and maybe that's a little bit of discussion, is a collaboration extra, Is it not? Is the match good? Do we need it or not? Some of those things. And to be clear, just because, and I'm not saying there aren't all matching, because it may be somebody asked for, 500,000, it's because they're already got 1.5 into the project. And should those, in that scenario, does the voting members think that should get a little bit more priority or not? Because at the end, I do think you guys are gonna see some really good stuff.
Well, what Greg provided here, honestly, if you took this and assigned, it's got numbers, it has numbers assigned to it, and graded that way. That's...
Yeah, and maybe what you do just maybe we start with Greg's here. One possible I might say is to maybe each category, instead of just one, I'm assuming it's 1 point, 3 points, or 5 points?
Correct.
Maybe it's 1 to 3 at the bottom, 4 to 7 in the middle, no, you can get,
Right.
maybe as you tally them up, maybe, there's a little bit of range, so then that way, if Mr. Sims thinks it was a 5, and Mr. Brickner thinks it was a 7, because there was a 5 to 7 in there, I'm not trying to make it more complicated, I'm trying to make it so there's a little bit of spread, that's all. And if we're all stuck with either they get a 5 or a 3 or a 1, or maybe you make those numbers a little bit more, or you put a range in, but
I actually like this one.
Let the record show that he complimented something that I did.
I texted it.
He's on, right?
Well, the simpler we can keep this, the better, I think.
I liked it.
That's good. I appreciate that.
This one makes my head hurt. Nothing personal, but it's like,
Even the foundations?
yeah,
There's some good stuff.
I'm not saying you can't use this as a reference, but if you can kind of try and condense this mentally to a lower level, it's gonna make things a little easier.
Would you want to add one of the other categories like sustainability to this first one?
Yes.
yeah, or collaboration.
Right.
Yeah, those need to be added,
Or,
especially sustainability.
Matching
because-
funds.
matching.
Matching
Right.
funds should be added to it.
Matching funds, or you could
Population
even say,
served.
how much do you have
Sure.
raised?
Right.
So we'll add sustainability.
I will say, talking to other council members, that's been a constant thing about matching funds. Because if we can get more people that have matching funds, we can probably help more people in the community, more organizations.
Well,
You know.
in theory, again, it all depends on what you're exactly talking, but in
Yeah.
theory, from a larger, if you have more organizations
Mm-hmm.
collaborating on something, and those organizations are bringing more money to the table, chances are that project probably is more sustainable. So, I mean, you're getting there one way or another, but those are the keys, and if it's a, you know, I don't think they're on here, let me make sure. Remember, Commissioner Biggs, when the county gave, I don't know, a couple $100,000 to get one of the halfway houses going, and they swore we'll never be back for money, and they haven't been.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, you get this thing, you help us get this thing built, and we'll be self-sustaining. We all kind of thought, sure, maybe, but, you know, that was what? 10, 12 years ago? They haven't been back. They're not on this list, but that would be my, hey, look, they did what they said once, there's the proof, they're sustainable, they're obviously running it in a way that's making that work. And or they have enough community involvement to keep it going. But I think collaboration, sustainability, matching, again, I'm not trying to make it look like this, but if you look at these real closely, I don't know how you would determine that in here. This is a 5 or a 3.
And then any other considerations might fall under the steering committee's priority considerations.
Yeah, and I
Because
think
there's a lot there.
there is a lot there that we can bring over to help.
What's that again?
The steering committee's priority considerations, so, you know, like one of them is try to serve as many Porter County residents as possible.
Right.
That's just an overarching, I think nobody has an issue with that, so that's one of them that we could just bring over.
Vicki, I see you over there writing, is that something you want to do? You want to make up a mock? All right.
Waiting for you guys to tell me what to do. No, but yeah, I could do that. It sounds like you like this.
Yeah, we like that
Greg's
layout.
sense approach.
Yeah,
Are these on? Are these on?
But in all seriousness, I think what Vicki is wanting to hear, is it important? Is the collaboration important? Is it move it up the scale for you or not?
Yes.
Does I think it's clear right now, everyone thinks the sustainability is a key part. Is matching a key thing?
Is matching.
It should be
the same
asked.
collaboration?
It's definitely, yeah.
It should be asked, it doesn't have to be key, but at least it should be asked.
Yeah, I
I mean, you can show how serious the project is or not, do you have any skin in the game or not?
right.
That's exactly.
So I mean, it should at least be asked, I think. The people that are voting, of course. Sure.
Yeah.
And as long as the match comes, if they got other COVID-related money one way or another from somewhere else, did they get money from another municipality, or does that come into play here? I don't know if they're even on here, but just trying to foster a little conversation.
Well, you know, knowing that everything on this list has been vetted as far as being qualifying under the final rule, makes it a little easier for us. I mean, my opinion is you have the ability you have matching funds, and in that same category is can you, you're asking for $1 million, but if we give you 500,000, will you still be able to meet this goal? And collaboration, everything from how long have you been in existence? How have you sustained yourself up to this point? You know, has it been all donated dollars or some of it coming from the state or the federal government? I mean, where I think we should be is what we know that this money we're giving, whatever that amount ends up being, that we knew it's a good investment, and it's going to be here a year from now, 2 years from now, and so on, unless the problem goes away. The worst thing is to hand to somebody that 24 months from now they're sheltered up and moved out of town. That's my worst fear, and that but the gold standard, in my opinion, with all that, or the platinum, is how many people does this have the potential to touch that live in our county? That, to me, should be the gold standard.
The only thing I would potentially add to that is, and again, for the voting board members, does it matter how long? So in other words, again, I haven't seen the detailed proposals on all of these, but, so I'm just bringing it up. What if something in here is really more like a 18-month program? It's a good program, meets all the requirements, but it's 18 months and then that's it. Don't know if that's something the board's gonna think is, of course, I'm sure it'll matter what the program is and what it's attempting to address, but you're gonna run into things that are potentially permanent and things that are potentially for a time period.
I can't imagine what that would be. I mean, speaking for myself, something that, if that were put in front of me, is that, how serious could this problem be if 12 or 18 months from now, you're no longer around to even.
Well, and not them around, that program.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
some organization says, I want to do XYZ program. I think if you were doing it, you would come up and say, well, I'm going to do this program to show how well it worked, and that's the information I'm going to use to try to keep it continuing. That's the kind, I don't mean the whole organization goes out. I mean, somebody stretches a little bit to do a program that they wouldn't normally have done because they don't have the funds for. Let's say they got some skin in the game, or they've collaborated with somebody and it's I don't know, I'll make one up, and I hope I don't make one up that's on there. Somebody wants to do a life skills for young men experiencing homeless problems because they don't have some of that. Oh, did I do it?
That's number 5.
I came up with an example.
So anyway,
So I think that's where it might be, where some individuality might come into play, where, somebody on the board will say no, you're gonna have somebody else on the board say maybe, and someone else say that's a great program.
right.
I don't know, that,
And it may just go in the
Yeah.
miscellaneous category,
Right.
but I'm just trying to get everybody's,
but
I
if
really
you got
didn't
something
mean to
like
guess.
that,
I mean, it sounds like a good idea.
so then I guess we'd have to average it out. and
Probably everyone
say
needs life
how
skills.
to
at this
score
point,
up.
not just
Right.
the homeless
I
one.
give a 0 to, somebody say, yeah, that's a great idea, I don't
And-
know.
and again, to the earlier point, just to get everybody to think about it, we're gonna see great things, okay, that's gonna impact a lot of people. There's gonna not be I don't think we're gonna be lucky in the sense of, 5 of these rose to the top and 5 of these, 2 fell off, and 3 are clearly not as good as the top 5. I think it's gonna be, we're gonna have to dig deep into what the voting members think is important. And everyone doesn't have to agree, but ultimately, you're gonna have to split hairs to grade them out. And that's gonna come down to individual preferences on some of the things we've touched.
Now, Scott, okay, so all the committees, subcommittees get done, and now the steering committee is meeting. When they meet, are they gonna have people come in front of them again, just like we are? Are they gonna redo that, or is it if somebody wants to come up and speak, or let's say someone on our board here really feels passionate about
I think
something?
I can answer that. I think the answer is no. What we are going, my understanding, Vicki, correct me, because I think you covered some of this. Committee member,
Okay.
like this somebody from this committee or the committee, they can approach the commissioners to validate their, validate their list of projects. You can go up there and make the case for them.
Okay.
Or if the commissioners we're going to have an advantage because I'm going to be sitting there, but still, that doesn't prohibit any of you to come up and say, we really like these 4 projects or 6 projects, and here's why.
So just to clarify,
Let the public know.
Vicki is going to present to the commissioners. So, let me back up. This committee makes their recommendation and scoring to the central committee. The central committee is gonna come up with whatever their recommendation is. Vicki's then presenting that to the full commissioners. And then most likely to the council. Because it's gotta get got to get approved, and then it's got to get funded. I think that if a committee member wanted to go while Vicky was, excuse me, when it goes to the central committee, then at that point in time, I'm not sure the central committee to answer Robin's point, I'm not sure the central committee has had that discussion of whether or not when they get to the central committee and there's these 5 and these 6 and these 12, whether or not they're going to say, okay, let's have presentations again or not. Because I don't think they've had that discussion yet. And so the answer is maybe.
Okay.
Okay, and it may be at that point in time, like if you or anyone that's on the board said wanted to go when that was happening, like this is why we got here and we encourage you to do it and this is why. Once it comes out of the central committee, then Vicky will be doing the presentations based upon that.
I think what will have an effect on that, whether or not that happens or not, is if we can get from central committee what amount of money that they want to allocate toward this effort. Because if we stay within those boundaries, then there's no need to have that conversation once it reaches once it gets to the steering committee. The steering committee says, fine, okay, this is what the committee wanted, and we approved this amount. That to me would be very helpful, not only as sitting on this committee, but also as a commissioner, that we know up front how much this committee, how much money we have that we can deal with. Otherwise, Scott, I mean, all we're doing here is,
At the end of the day,
I don't even know what we'd be doing here at this point, actually.
You would be sending up a grade, you'd be sending up, these are the ones that meet it and that got vetted and got thoroughly won through, and this is how they graded out. To me, the tough one's at central committee.
Oh, it is.
Okay,
But-
and the central committee hasn't had an opportunity to say this much here, this much there, because we didn't have them yet.
Yeah. I just don't want, we've got some volunteers here, and even the elected officials that are sitting on here, everybody's time's valuable, and I respect those who volunteered to sit here, and I want the opinions that come off this board to mean something. And I would hate to have us put in all this work only to hand those list of projects off, and maybe only 1 or 2 make a cut because of the amount of money that's available or not available. Again, if we know up front, here's the allotment of money that we're going to give toward this particular subject matter.
Well, I have actually thought a lot about what you're saying, and I think there's lots of pitfalls in doing it, but I think my suggestion would be is that the commissioners probably need to address at one of their meetings, and I think the place to start would be, I think the best place to start for that discussion would be the pure non-for-profit gift, because that's a big number. I think that's a little easier to throw a dart at the wall and say, because how do you COVID response from the health department on the other committee? I mean, don't know yet. You got to see what those are. This one's another one of those. It's hard to say, you know what, we're going to do 4.8 million because these are different. But meaning that if we need these things, we need these things. Okay. Where if we're giving money to XYZ non-for-profit, that's not necessarily the same level as we're doing housing somewhere, or we're doing mental health for something, or whatever the case may be. So to me, the biggest number is at the non-for-profits, and that may be where the commissioners need to come up with, but right now, we're comfortable with allocating X dollars to that category, and I think that gives a little bit more direction for the rest of them. Because, am I reading this right, Vicki? It's about
The nonprofit?
23 million?
Yeah.
Yes.
And keep in mind, the other committee, the nonprofit and small businesses committee, or employers committee, That follows a different focus in the final rule. That deals with proof of economic harm caused by COVID and a response that relates to that economic harm. So that committee is dealing with grants to nonprofits. Grants, or we talked about loans, but we're not going to do loans probably. Just straight grants to nonprofits. The challenge that the nonprofit committee is going to have, and we're going to Monday right now, is that some of those proposals are clearly enumerated uses. But the focus with that other committee is, was there an economic harm, and does your proposal respond to that economic harm? That's the criteria. But the steering committee wants to see that all uses of money comply with the final rule. So that's going to make it, the other committee, a little bit more difficult. And I'll just divulge this because I did struggle with which project should come here, because there's a lot of social service type projects in the nonprofit. But the key is, who's the end user of the money? Is there going to be a project that the county wants to pursue, that they're going to contract with the nonprofit to carry out that project, which is what this subcommittee is dealing with? Or is the beneficiary basically the nonprofit or small business that suffered economic harm, and now they want to do something to respond to that economic harm? It might be an enumerated use, it may just be meeting operational expenses, it may be something different that they could possibly argue, and that's where it's going to get, because you can make arguments that this is responsive. I'm not making the argument for them, they have to make the argument. So the nonprofit committee and small business committee, that's going to be a different focus than this one. Here you're looking at projects, whether it's violence projects, the early childhood projects, or the homelessness housing projects, or the mental health projects that Porter County wants to pursue.
Vicki, last time we were here, you had about 55 million, and how much that number grew to how much money is being asked total?
Right, about 53 million.
Oh, it's only 53? Okay.
Oh, only
And how much money do we have available?
33.
30, well,
And
Didn't
keep
we
in
allocate
mind,
some
there's
money?
already been about 4 million appropriated.
Yeah.
Right, that's, so
So
about
more-
28 something, 29 million?
Okay, I see what you're
somewhere
saying,
in
yeah.
Okay.
That's still quite a bit of money. I mean, as far as I'm aware.
I take it.
But Jim, to your point, it is, as we work on this criteria, I do think the commissioners have to start, and the council has to start having a little bit of conversation. Now we understand the universe of asks. What's the, whether it's a cap, whether it's whatever the case may be, to health.
That would really be, I think it would really be helpful knowing that up front. Because, you know, what are the things that we don't want to do here? We don't want to create some, you know, some kind of situation where it pits this board or any other committee against the Board of Commissioners or the county council, that we all understand the role we have here. We all understand there's a certain amount of information that we're responsible for collecting and getting it to that steering committee. I just want to be crystal clear on what that is. So everybody is, at the end of the process, is not saying, well, you know, I'm pissed that, you know, they only selected 2 of our projects. Everybody needs to be clear, because this is trailblazing here. This is like nothing we do up here in county government. We're not in the business of handing out money. So this is all new to us, and it's going to take patience and some understanding, and a lot of questions are going to be asked. Some of those questions are going to be silly to some people, but they need to be asked. Nobody needs to get angry or impatient with the process, because it needs to happen this way if it's going to happen the right way.
And just every committee is sitting in the same shoes.
Right. Every committee is sitting in the same shoes.
It's So everyone's gonna have that same, and then ultimately, it's gonna come down to commissioners and the council approving and approving. So it's
Right.
gonna be, to a lot of extent, again, I don't wanna repeat, but that's why we gotta build this library of information of why these were the top.
So that list, taking what Greg had submitted and adding to it, I think it's a real good starting point. And also, go back to the scoring rubric that the foundation had provided. I do think there's a couple of categories here that are relevant to what we're doing. It would be helpful for us to know. So as the auditor, knowing what you know about this whole ARP program, you select or don't select what you think would be helpful to us. And let's get this down and let's get moving so we can.
I don't know if Attorney McClure wants that we work on it together, but we could like wordsmith something, get out
Yeah,
a
and then we get it
draft
out to everybody, and everybody
and
can
see what
say
you say.
their input.
You want to kind of keep the 3 columns. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, whatever,
We can do
3s, 4, it doesn't matter, 6, doesn't matter to me, just so we're touching all the relevant subject matter and then being able to, and coming up with some kind of grading formula that makes sense for each category.
We'll work on it and get it to you guys and for your final decision.
And I'm glad Greg could finally contribute, Mike.
It's about time. It's about time, that's all I got.
Ow! Man, I better make forward, those knives are kind of hurting a little bit.
Do you, Jim, do
You
you,
might need some mental health.
Might need, oh my gosh.
What would we benefit from right here? We would be,
Jim,
after running these committees, we might need.
are you thinking,
Hopefully we're funding something to help you out, Greg. It's gonna be a rough committee.
I appreciate that.
All right, getting back
getting
to our agenda real quick. We need to set the next date.
I was gonna ask, do you think we might be ready to start hearing presentations next meeting?
It depends on how quickly she gets that back to us and how quickly we approve it, the scoring.
Can it be,
I think we can get together tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was thinking sustainability, collaboration, and matching or leveraging. There's got to be some wordsmithing going on here.
so if we have our scoring sheet,
Yeah, and service,
How many
what kind of
you touched
swath
by it?
of the community they service. However you want to put that.
I would
What's that,
say
Mike?
you guys will probably have that by the close of Monday,
Okay,
all right?
Okay.
We'll have that wordsmith together with a proposal for you guys to make revisions
okay,
to.
then say if we stay with Thursdays,
I think we already decided the 21st.
the 21st? Okay.
Or
5 o'clock?
Yeah, I guess we can start hearing applications.
Do we want to, can we set any future meetings beyond that? Because managing that calendar with all the different committees is pretty.
And the other question before you get to that one, 'cause I think that's good, is how many do you want to hear in one night?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you want to group like types together?
Like housing versus.
Right.
Behavioral?
Yours is housing. I have 3 different categories.
Yeah.
One is behavioral health, one is housing, and then the third category are the 2 that don't fit into either category. One deals with domestic violence, but behavioral health is rolled into that. And the other one is the early childhood intervention program.
So I think you could almost call those 2 behavioral health adjacent. So like we have 2 categories, but, did you guys already set how long?
I was just gonna ask, is
30
there
minutes?
a,
Was
is there a
that-
time
What does the
limit?
board want to do? You want 15 minutes, you want 30 minutes, you want 20 minutes?
Well, I think it'd be a good idea to give them an idea of how much time they have before they come in, so
Right.
they're not.
Oh, absolutely. That's what Kurt and I were talking about, is make sure they had everything
And I
before.
just offered this, maybe 15 minutes for them to make their presentation, then you can ask questions afterwards.
So like half hour total.
Yeah, and I would probably double that, just for conversation.
30
30-minute
minutes?
up to a 30-minute presentation, and then another 15, 30 minutes for questions.
The thing I tell you is if you're looking at, how many applications you gonna look at that night?
Yeah, am I gonna have to?
2?
I would say, yeah, no more than 3, because
But-
that's an hour and a half meeting. But they may not take that whole time.
But all I'm trying to avoid is a 15 minutes isn't quite enough.
It's not.
And then you have trying to get more questions, and then we get to an hour anyway, because we have to peel it out of them, because they only had 15 minutes at the beginning.
I mean, that's fine. I'm just make the board aware of it, that the vast majority, I'm talking about 99% of,
I think a half hour's a long
99% of the other.
presentation. We want to start to lose us after.
Well, that's up to, it's up to, it's
That's
not
a long
required.
presentation.
How about 20 minutes, and then 20-minute presentation, and
Yeah, 15 to 20 is,
and
20
then
at the
another
most.
20.
I mean, but you gotta factor, some of these people might be asking for more. I mean, somebody that's asking for over $1 million is gonna have probably a longer presentation than somebody
Well-
that's asking for 50,000. You would
I think we need to give them as much consideration. I mean, we gotta take it seriously, so they walk out of here knowing that they were heard, you know, the questions were answered, and that everybody is thumbs up. I'm definitely, if they can't hold our attention, then that's either an individual up here problem, or that's their problem for not engaging us, you know, strong enough.
Well, my,
You've already lost me. So,
As soon as you sat down, you lost me.
Oh, gosh.
no, boy.
I think 20 minutes
in the middle of them.
is I think, and to your point, $1 million versus 50,000, the person, it's going to be equal as important to each person.
I agree.
I don't think we give more time to somebody asking for
I
more
just
money
think they might have some more to
than we do.
explain.
I just think, I think that.
I think, I mean, a 15-minute presentation is longer than you think.
Yes, it
Number
is.
one. Number two is, you gotta remember, you got another 15 minutes or whatever, we're gonna be asking questions. So they're gonna get plenty of time to make their case. We have their application, we know it already meets the final rule. So there should be only a couple of things that we have questions about at that point. I mean, we're gonna be at this a while, we got 10 cases here to hear.
So what if
If
we
we only
did-
hear two a night,
So if we did 3 in a night, and we accounted for 40 minutes in total between presentation, questions, and bathroom breaks, what are we at? Is that at 2 hours?
yeah.
So we could do 3 in 2 hours, is that too long? Or is it 30 minutes total? I mean, I'm trying, because I also know that we're gonna have people roll in here with easels and.
I personally think 2 a night is plenty. You know, you gotta factor in,
I'm
Energy
fine with that, as
and
long as everybody
mindset.
else is fine with that. But
Once you
I don't wanna
start-
I don't wanna set through, I don't think it's necessary. I'm not gonna set through 30 minutes of a presentation where actually, 10 minutes of it is just regurgitating what they said in the first 10 minutes of it. I think
I'd
that
like
you
to keep-
should.
My vote, I'm going to make a motion, we keep it 15-minute presentation, give them 15 minutes, 30 minutes per total.
Q&A.
Yeah, I think that's plenty of time, I think it keeps our attention, at least mine, I can't speak for Greg, he's longer attention span than I do, but I think to get to the meat of it, I want to hear bullets. I want them to come in here and give a good, solid 15 minutes, and
Well, then second it.
you will ask some questions and
Second
keep it
his
to a half
motion.
hour. Because this is going to drag on.
Damn it.
So 15 minutes, up to 15
no,
minutes.
Greg's not gonna
Okay.
second
And
it.
one of the things,
No.
some of these groups have already submitted like supplemental information, and then we're going to tell them, if you have other information to give, bring your copies with you. So you'll be doing a lot of weekend reading.
Well, but our scoring would already be done by then, right? So I guess that's the next question. If they come in and present, then we're expected to score. If they give us more information, our score's already done.
If
No.
if they are going to be coming to the meeting with additional materials that weren't provided as part of the application, we're telling them, you have to bring so many copies with you, so that you each will
So
have.
you have
a
it
copy of
before the
that
presentation or
information.
during?
Or during the presentation, yeah.
But that's a lot to regurgitate. I mean, if we're gonna listen to them and question, that's a lot for us to process the new information and try and incorporate. That's all I'm saying.
Well, we don't necessarily have to score them that night, I mean, you,
I guess that's the next question. When do we score them?
Yeah, I think you would want to score them that night.
It's fresher in your minds.
Yeah.
However, I would advise not to, like, announce your rankings that night. Wait until you hear everything, because you might want to go back and adjust.
Oh, I agree, I agree.
Yeah.
with you.
right, that's what
I
I
don't
said, we're
think-
not like
I
submitting
don't
something
think the
right then.
applicants need to
Okay.
know how we score them.
Exactly, exactly. We wait till the end,
Yes,
and then there'll be the evaluation, the tabulation
Yeah.
of the results.
You know, here's another weird question. If we go through some of these people and all of a sudden we realize our second presentation, we would like to know some more, can we bring them back if we as a group decide to, or is that not, I mean, is anyone talking about that at all?
no,
If the board wants to,
if the
they
board
can.
wants to do that, you can.
Okay, I'll just, you know, just to
So
throw
if
stuff
we're, if
out.
we're gonna keep it to 30 minutes on both sides, can we do 3 in a night?
Yeah, that's fine, I'm fine.
Is that,
I'm fine with what the board wants to do.
If-
I
Robin,
just
is that
don't know.
okay?
I mean, as long as they are sticking to that timeline. Because you know how things sometimes can,
It's gonna be up to our honorable chairman to make sure that that's.
Gavel guy.
yeah, just start using that.
Now,
Bang,
that being
bang,
said
bang.
too, the public is gonna have a chance for input, right, in 3
Oh, I
minutes?
forgot about that, so maybe only 2.
Well, the public.
Because we have to.
Only 2
public
minutes?
comment.
Okay, but is that 2 minutes after every project, or is it 2 minutes at the end?
At the end.
At the end, okay.
At the end.
So we don't have to
Okay,
worry.
then I-
But Kurt, so Mike's got a motion on the floor, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
I went with 15
Could you-
minute presentation and
Okay, could you-
15 minutes for Q and A.
Okay, 15 minutes per presentation, 15 minutes for Q and A. Is there a second?
Nope.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I think it's, I think it's reasonable. I think that the correspondence is coming out of this office before they even come into this room, knowing what we expect of them. I think 15 minutes to do their presentation, and then 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever we decide on, for question and answers is plenty of time. They've had a long time to think about this. I mean, that's my feeling. So we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
You got,
I said aye.
pick it, okay.
Yeah, so I think it's 3 to
And
1.
it passes. I was gonna tell you I have to pick a team.
I just don't know if it's enough time. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, but
Well,
know
then you can ask questions.
Look,
Yeah.
look, it's not about being, you're not wrong. It's not about being wrong or who's right or anything. It's
Well,
just, you know, it's,
What's been walking around since?
look, I've been to these meetings 1,000 times, like a lot of people on these boards. And I'm telling you, if you don't have tight rules and regulations, they'll be taken advantage of. So that's why when Kurt corresponds with them, and that cover letter is gonna be, here's what you're gonna get. And we're not gonna exceed it. You get 15 minutes for your presentation, there'll be 15 minutes, yeah, for the question and answers. And it's up to the committee if it wants to extend the Q and A longer.
Okay, now, that wasn't part of the motion.
You're
I
right.
would accept
But
that. That I would agree with.
I'm adding that for you, Greg.
I would appreciate that. Only because there might be I don't want to rush anybody. I understand the notion of let's get them and let's go and let's focus. But I also understand, like Robin had said, if there's $1 million, there might be someone there that just has a little bit more information that is super important that I'd hate to see the time cut off and now they're at a disadvantage.
If they have
You know,
super important information.
Absolutely.
and
No,
they
I
get it in
agree with
the
that
first
too.
15 minutes, shame on them.
They're gonna be like bullet talking.
But I can easily go along with that.
Just another note, we are going to allow people to have present PowerPoints.
Yes.
We're setting some rules for that they have to submit the PowerPoint presentation via email to me at least 2 business days in advance of the meeting, so that I can test it, make sure it works, you know.
It's not corrupted.
It's not corrupted.
We've had that.
And
Yes.
I told them, no bells or whistles, no fancy, stuff in it, just this plain old PowerPoint presentation. And then we've asked them to bring copies of that PowerPoint presentation, enough for each of the committee members and advisors, along with a couple extra copies, kind of thing.
Yeah, the board should keep in mind, going back to this 15 minutes and then 15 minutes or longer if the committee decides a Q&A, we're not asking them to explain the historic relevance of their organization. We're asking them to explain a project or program that they're wanting to be funded. That's all we're doing.
But if they choose to go that route, then that's their fault, and that's their,
Well,
you know, they're gonna, the
thanks to
rubric's gonna
Vicki,
show low.
she's done some homework here, and they all meet up to this point, the final rule. So we don't need to get into all that other stuff, the minutia of all that.
And then two, the council's gonna meet on the 19th, and we'll vote the new member on, the replacement member on it that day.
In the letter for that staff will be doing about the timing and all that, should we also have in there that they need to be crystal clear in that 15 minutes that they're going to get to the finish line in time?
Yes.
Just want to make, because that's a question, that's a multi-layered question that's going to be hard to ask at Q&A if they're not ready for it.
Yeah, it has to be made clear that you get 15 minutes. That's what you get. Now, that doesn't mean, nobody up here is going to, if they're a minute over, 2 minutes over, going to say, but I'm just saying, if you don't.
I don't know.
Crystal clear to speakers before they get into a room, because we have to, folks, we got to remember, we have to, there's a segment of this, and I'm going to make sure it's followed, that we allow public comment at the end of each one of these meetings. So, you know, we need to account for all that time.
Are we gonna have somebody that, if somebody sits in that chair and they get a little hostile or a little bit animated, is there gonna be someone up here that's gonna be, you've got 3 minutes, is there gonna be a clock somewhere where they know, or?
I'll take care of that. I ain't worried about it.
Okay.
I found that most people get pissed off at you when you don't treat them with respect, and they're going to be treated with respect.
Okay.
And if those who are just here to rabble rouse, I'll deal with that.
Well, you would think people would be respectful for the most part because of.
Most people are.
Because of the purpose of the funds. I mean, in going towards the
Most
homeless and
people are.
mental health.
You show them respect, they typically 95% of them will give you respect back. But we need to hear what the public's saying at the time. That was all part of the deal here. And then I think I like the setup here. So far, I think that we're giving 15 minutes, 15 minutes or 30 minutes of Q&A, and then we hear from the public in the end. I don't know how much, and we're going to score everybody. I don't know how much fair it can be.
Do you, I think it would help too, if on the 21st, if we're going to hear presentations, if you guys pick them, then that way we advertise it as, these are the presentations happening on the 21st at this time. So the public actually has an opportunity to come
Sure.
and say,
I mean,
Sure.
I want to go listen to the family focus one, so I'm going on whatever night that is.
Fine.
What have you.
Yeah.
Now, what if I call them or contact them and they say, ooh, I can't make it that night? Can we then go to the next group? To try to be accommodating.
Yeah,
There
why not?
was one individual who contacted me and shared that some personal stuff about some health issues and would be more available in May. And I think that those kinds of issues are beyond anyone's control, and there's going to be enough meetings that we should try to be accommodating if there's something that comes up with that.
Personally, I would say, Vicki, if you want to coordinate with, you're already going to be coordinating with them, who's going to be speaking, maybe if you can try and get them, if they're the same thing, and maybe the other ones could be later than if whatever person is that can't meet until, then we could wait and do the other person that needs to be at that time also. I don't know.
But then if we run out of time, then,
Well, I'm just saying, if we do the two, or whoever's up, you would think that they're already preparing themselves.
Well,
You would think.
Maybe Robin's got a good point. Maybe we pick another meeting date, whatever it is, tell Vicki she's got 2 meeting dates to do 4 presentations scheduled up, and she'll let us know who they are. Does that work?
Well, so far, we'll see. It just, most people up here have a job. So,
maybe some other things going on.
yeah, so, we all have to schedule, so in other words, if an applicant's saying, well, you know what, I can't, really don't want to do that night, can I do another night? I know if I was asking somebody for $1 million, I'd be pretty accommodating to when they, I could ask them. That's just my feeling.
Just to be certain, you said 3 presentations a night, right, per meeting?
Yes.
Now, the other thing is, I'd like to, if possible, lock in calendar dates.
Oh. Well, I think we
Because,
were
like I
thinking
said, our
Thursdays.
Thursdays are the best for people.
Yeah,
Right now, your next meeting is already scheduled for the 21st of April.
right.
The 28th, Thursday the 28th is open. May 5th, well, I can send the park board out to Sunset Hill again, so we could probably do the 21st, the 28th, the 5th, and the 12th of May. I'll go ahead and block those out on the calendar. So that I don't have anybody else trying to swoop in and steal the time.
Okay. And then we're gonna do 3 on the 21st and 3 on the next date?
Okay, 3 on the 21st, and the next date is, that's the question, is it the 28th or the first Thursday of May?
No, the next meeting would be the 28th,
28th, okay,
then May 5th, and May 12th.
okay.
So if we're doing 3 per night, we actually have flexibility here,
Yeah.
because that's 12 total, and there's only 10
Yeah,
in
but
this
I'm
group.
sure that they'll want to have another meeting after hearing all the proposals to hash out their final recommendation kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and how we're going to send this off to the steering committee. I'd like the one final meeting to tie everything up, yeah, where we're not listening to
What I'm
applications.
saying is that there'll be a meeting where we won't have 3, because we only have 10. And here we're setting up
Well,
12.
I'd rather set up the room and have it not necessary later on, is what I'm saying. I need to lock in those dates on, so nobody else comes in here and swoops into the chambers. So I'd rather set 4 dates. And then if it changes or you don't need a meeting,
Or maybe after the first night, we think 4 can go on the night, then we have the
Yeah.
4th meeting, or maybe we end up having to spread them out more and we have to get to another one.
yeah.
Right. There is one group that has 2 proposals. Do they get 15 minutes per proposal?
Yes, I would say per proposal.
Who's that? Oh, that
The
housing?
very first one on your list, yeah.
I guess.
Separate proposal.
And do you want to just be sort of random, whoever can come those nights, or do you want to group by like?
They're gonna trust you, Vicki.
Yeah, I mean, in the perfect world,
Works.
in a perfect world, right, it would be nice that they all like coordinated together, but I mean, I can't keep track of it.
I don't, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, I mean,
Just do what you want to do.
So we're planning on being done May 12th then? Is that what we're thinking, all things considered?
That's up to you guys.
Yeah, but
That's not like- I just
that would
put
put
the
us
room.
on track, I believe, to be done. May
Okay,
12th.
the only reason why I'm saying that is that next week I'm going on a trip, I'm taking kids to DC with the school, so
Yeah,
I'll be gone for that next week.
We're not having any,
If you guys want to come, you're welcome to come.
this committee doesn't meet next week.
yeah, we're not meeting next week.
You don't meet again.
No, I
until
know.
the 21st.
No, I'm just going to May.
Oh, when are
So
you?
like if our last meeting is May 12th, because I leave the 17th and come back the 24th, so I won't be, if we have a meeting on the 19th of May, I won't be here.
No.
That's all I'm saying.
We're not scheduled to have one, right?
No, I'm only going
You
to
should be
May
tied up
12th.
by then.
Okay, that's all, I'm just want to,
Hopefully, we can get it done sooner.
If not, you're just going to have to cancel your,
And again, I'm not here the 28th, but I don't need to
some angry kids, angry
you're
elves.
not going on the field trip.
watch the video.
Okay. So our next scheduled meeting is the 21st at 5 PM, where we will start hearing applications. So we'll have a bathroom break in there every now and again. Like, just in case. Does anybody from the public would like to say something? Yes. State your name and where you're from.
Lisa Franco from Valparaiso. You said there's no stupid or silly questions, so if I heard this tonight, I'm sorry I didn't retain it. For organizations that submitted proposals for this group, since it is public knowledge for all of the proposals, will it be taken into consideration if they did apply for, let's say, the nonprofit, if they applied for both because they fit both categories? Will this committee take that into consideration, and will the nonprofit committee take that into consideration in regards to scoring or funding? Or are there no overlaps? I thought I looked through everything, and I thought I saw a couple overlaps, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, there was one group that applied to this one and the nonprofit.
Yeah, so that's why I'm
They're
asking.
only going to be in this one.
Okay.
Everyone's assigned to only one.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to clarify. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm behind on this, and so I don't know what was asked in the questionnaire, but I'm wondering if all of these that have been chosen or put in a order thing, if they have to show accountability of what they've achieved in their program, and what do they expect to achieve when they get the money, and how are they going to achieve that?
Right, those are all big questions. Those are good questions. And those are the types of questions that'll be asked by this board during the question and answer period.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Anybody on the board like to?
I have one other. Do you want the copies of all of the proposals all at once, or do you want them by meeting?
How does the board feel? I'd personally like them by meeting.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
All right, what I'll do is actually as long as I'm gonna be doing it, I'll do like a manila envelope for each of you by meeting, and I'll give them all to you at once, kind of thing, or make them available, probably ask you to come down and pick them up. But we'll have to wait till Vicki gets the schedule done, and then I'll put them by meeting in manila.
So you'll make up individual packets, you make them available, you'll let us know when they're available, tell us to come over and pick them up.
Correct.
Perfect.
Correct. It depends on when Vicki gets the scheduling done with them. I mean,
Okay.
but I could go ahead and make all of the copies, so then it's just a matter of sorting them down.
And then you're going to handle reaching out to the applicants and letting them know what the ground rules are.
Correct.
And when they're to be up here, when they're scheduled to speak to us. Perfect.
And then I'll let you know the first three. Well, we'll probably try to schedule them out, at least through the 5th.
That's why you got all the dates.
Yeah. And then I'll let you know as soon as they're set.
Well, I know it's been said many times up here, but we really do appreciate it. You know, if there's an Auditor of the Year award, I'd have nominated.
I agree.
Vicki, we trust.
I'll entertain a motion to recess.
I can't do that, can I?
I'll second.
We're
I'll
out of here.
second.